It was a charming cottage, somewhere between Moon Mountain and Star Grove, where Luca and his grandfather, Grandpa Theo, called home. The cottage perched on a small hill, seeming to be embraced by the clouds themselves. It was surrounded by blooming flowers and ancient trees, as if it held a secret waiting to be revealed. Luca, an alert boy with tousled hair and radiant eyes, loved to explore the wonders of nature. His grandfather, Grandpa Theo, a wise man with snow-white hair and a smile that could tell tales from times gone by, was his endless source of inspiration. The sunsets between Moon Mountain and Star Grove were legendary, enchanting the house and its inhabitants every evening anew. Grandpa Theo had once traveled the world and reached the most remote places, yet his greatest adventures were found in the time spent with Luca. Often, they sat together on the porch, gazing at the sky as the stars grew brighter and the moon slowly made its way across the horizon. Grandpa Theo told stories of his travels, of distant lands, and the treasures he had discovered, and Luca listened intently. His eyes sparkled like the stars in the night sky. And so began the story of Luca and Grandpa Theo in this mysterious cottage somewhere between Moon Mountain and Star Grove, where adventure was in the air and their dreams reached the sky. Luca's friend, Hannah. One day, as the sun slowly approached the horizon, painting the sky in delicate shades of pink and orange, Luca and Grandpa Theo sat on their beloved porch. The birds chirped as if telling stories from times long past, and a gentle breeze played with the flowers in the garden. Luca looked up at Grandpa Theo and said, "Grandpa, do you remember the locked attic? The one you haven't opened since your last journey?" Grandpa Theo smiled and nodded. "Yes, Luca, I do. The attic holds many memories of countless adventures, but there are also secrets that remain undiscovered." Luca gazed into the distance and then back at Grandpa Theo. "You know, Grandpa, I have a friend named Hannah. She's just as adventurous as I am and loves stories as much as you do." Grandpa Theo perked up. "Hannah, you say? That name sounds like a truly courageous adventurer." Luca nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, she is. She dreams of exploring the world and finding hidden treasures. I told her about our locked attic, and she's become really curious." A slight furrow appeared on Grandpa Theo's forehead. "Luca, you know the attic can be dangerous, and there are things that are better left untouched." Luca thought for a moment and then replied, "I understand your concern, Grandpa. You're right. Sometimes a secret should remain just that, a secret. I'll talk to Hannah and see if we can find other adventures." Grandpa Theo smiled gently and embraced his grandson. "That's a wise choice, Luca. Remember that adventure can be found in safer places too." In his heart, the old man felt deep admiration for his grandson and his wise insight. But he knew with certainty that Luca and Hannah would never be dissuaded from exploring the attic on their own. Yet, he had profound trust in his grandson, believing that he would face any adventure with wisdom and determination. The secret hideaway in the garden. On a clear evening, as the moon rose in the sky and the stars whispered their tales, Luca and Hannah's secret meeting spot in the garden transformed into the setting of a magical encounter. This place in the garden was an enchanted space they had created themselves. It was nestled on the edge of the property, where tall trees formed a dense canopy of leaves, exuding a sense of seclusion and enchantment. To reach it, they had to follow a narrow path lined with wild grass and colorful flowers. At the path's end stood an old tree with sprawling branches, like protective arms reaching over a small clearing. On this clearing, Luca and Hannah had spread a round carpet made of colorful cloths, crowned in the center by a low table with a lantern. The lantern was adorned with candles, casting gentle light that bathed the place in a magical glow. Around the clearing, they had arranged colorful cushions and blankets to sit on. A small shelf attached to a tree trunk served as a makeshift bookshelf where they kept their favorite books, including many adventure stories. The sounds of nature surrounded this secret place: the rustling of leaves in the trees, the chirping of birds, and the distant murmur of a stream. Here, Luca and Hannah felt connected to nature and their own spirit of adventure. It was a sanctuary where they could retreat to invent stories, make plans, and jointly plot their adventures. This secret spot in the garden was their refuge, a magical place of inspiration and a symbol of their friendship. The two friends had secretly arranged to meet here, and as they met under the shimmering sky, they sensed that this evening held something truly special. The soft whispers and giggles revealed their anticipation for what lay ahead. Luca looked deep into Hannah's sparkling eyes and spoke softly, as if sharing a precious secret. "Hannah, we're going to do it. We'll explore the attic, despite my grandfather's warning." Filled with unwavering determination, Hannah nodded with a smile. "Luca, I sense there's something truly remarkable to discover up there. Let's find out." Under the twinkling light of the moon and the soft melody of the stars, which seemed to whisper their stories, the two friends began to craft a brave plan. They whispered quietly and exchanged ideas on how to access the locked attic without arousing their grandfather's attention. Their plan was driven by shared curiosity and a love for adventure, but also by a deep trust in their friendship. The attic's secrets called to them, and the stars seemed to grant them their blessing. With every word they exchanged and every glance they shared, Luca and Hannah vowed to explore the attic together and solve the mysteries awaiting them up there. This clear evening marked the beginning of a bold adventure that would lead them into unknown realms, where the present and imagination merged into a wonderful mosaic. A clever plan for a grand adventure. In the following days, Luca and Hannah met secretly, time and again, to plan their expedition to the locked attic. They studied old maps and stories that Grandpa Theo had shared about his own journeys. And with each minute they spent together, they felt even closer. Luca spread a large map on the ground of their secret garden spot. It was covered in colorful markings that Grandpa Theo had added over the years. Here and there, they discovered mysterious notes and symbols that hinted at the attic holding more than they knew. Hannah retrieved an old diary from her backpack, a gift from her grandmother. Its pages had yellowed, and the entries told tales of distant lands and exotic adventures. Together, they read the stories, attempting to find clues that could aid them in exploring the attic. As the sun slowly set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, they sat by the campfire and devised their plan. Luca held the old key, believing it would lead to the attic. Hannah had a flashlight and her notebook to record their findings. "Hannah, tomorrow is the big day. Luca said with excitement. We'll explore the attic and uncover what hides up there. Hannah smiled, reaching for Luca's hand. I can hardly wait, Luca. But remember, we must be cautious and rely on each other. Grandpa's warning holds a reason. Luca nodded solemnly. You're right, Hannah. We'll depend on each other and overcome any obstacles together. The stars began to twinkle in the sky, and the campfire crackled softly. Luca and Hannah knew they were embarking on an adventure that could change their lives forever. But they were ready to explore the attic and solve the mysteries that awaited them. And so, under the shimmering night sky, they vowed that nothing could deter them from their adventure. The Mysterious Suitcase. On a clear, star-studded evening, with the silver moon reigning in the sky and the mystery of the attic lying before them like an unsolved riddle, Luca and Hannah met at their garden hideaway. The campfire was already flickering, creating a cozy atmosphere. They had donned warm clothing, for the attic could be quite chilly, and they wanted to be well prepared. Finally, the moment had arrived. Luca and Hannah exchanged a determined glance before approaching the attic door. The creaking of the old wood seemed like the signal for the start of their adventure. With hushed steps and muted voices, they stood before the attic door, ready to explore the mystery that awaited them. Luca inserted the old attic key into the lock and turned it slowly, as if opening the door to an unknown world full of wonders and secrets. The door swung open with a faint creak, and before them, the darkness of the attic stairs stretched out, as if eager to satisfy their curiosity. Hand in hand, they entered the mysterious attic. Step by step, prepared for whatever awaited them up there. An almost magical silence prevailed, as if the secrets of the past were here to tell their own stories. Luca and Hannah ascended the creaking wooden staircase slowly and entered a room bathed in a gentle, mysterious glow that streamed in through a small window. The attic felt like a place of time travel. Old crates and dusty chests were stacked all around them, preserving memories of bygone days. An old cobwebbed curtain hung from the ceiling, swaying gently in the breeze. In one corner stood an antique gramophone, and the walls were adorned with yellowed photographs of people from times long past. Bookshelves filled with weathered books lined one wall, and an old desk was covered with forgotten letters and diaries. The room was brimming with old memories, waiting in the form of forgotten suitcases, dusty books, and yellowed photographs. Yet suddenly, Hannah's gaze fell upon a particularly striking chest in a corner of the room. Its lid was adorned with a peculiar, glowing symbol that seemed to shimmer in the soft light of the moon and the stars. The symbol drew them in like a magnet, quickening their hearts. They hesitated for a moment as they stood before the mysterious chest, but their adventurous spirit prevailed, and they exchanged a determined look. Together, they approached the chest, their hands trembling, for they sensed that behind this radiant symbol lay a great mystery waiting to be uncovered. Expectations were high, and curiosity drove them. They had embarked on a grand adventure, and they hoped that this moment of revelation would mark the beginning of an exciting journey. In their minds, they painted wild tales of forgotten treasures, dusty maps, and mysterious artifacts from times long gone. As they slowly opened the chest's lid, excitement tingled in their fingertips. The thought that the next chapter of their adventure would soon unfold before them filled them with joy and anticipation. The chest yielded as Luca and Hannah worked on it together. It was as if the chest itself recognized that the time had come to reveal what it had concealed for so long. With a soft creak, the lid opened, and Luca and Hannah gazed into its interior as if they had opened the door to another world. Inside the chest, they initially found only a simple suitcase, whose outward appearance revealed nothing extraordinary. It was an unadorned, worn suitcase, like any other. Luca and Hannah exchanged a moment of puzzlement and disappointment. They had expected a larger adventure than merely standing in front of an ordinary suitcase. However, as they pondered, they suddenly heard a soft, unusual sound, a faint murmur and whisper that they couldn't precisely locate. Yet the sounds seemed to emanate from inside the suitcase. Luca and Hannah exchanged bewildered glances, and Hannah cautiously retrieved the suitcase from the chest. The sounds grew louder and clearer, and now they recognized them as a soft, mysterious melody that seemed to come from another world. The disappointment they had felt just moments ago transformed back into excitement. What was hidden in this suitcase that produced such enigmatic sounds? Luca and Hannah looked at each other and decided to open the suitcase to unveil the mystery it held. They had liberated the suitcase from the mysterious chest, and now the mysterious sounds within it grew louder and clearer. The murmuring and whispering seemed to invite them to delve deeper into the mystery before them. A mysterious magic emanated from the suitcase, further fueling their curiosity. Its outward appearance seemed plain and unremarkable, but Luca and Hannah sensed that it held much more than met the eye. Luca cautiously reached for the suitcase's locks, feeling that they were unusually warm. It was as if the suitcase was filled with life, as if it responded to his touch. Hannah stood beside him, examining the suitcase attentively. She sensed that they were on the threshold of something great. The locks of the suitcase sprang open, and the strange sounds suddenly ceased. As Luca lifted the lid, they were met with an astonishing sight. Inside the suitcase, they discovered an abundance of items that left them in awe. Old maps, exotic souvenirs, mysterious books, and much more filled the suitcase to the brim. Luca and Hannah could hardly believe their eyes. They knew that this suitcase was the key to thrilling adventures, and they were ready to use it. The world seemed to lie before them, full of unknown places, foreign cultures, and undiscovered treasures. With a sparkle in their eyes and a tingling in their hearts, they knew that their journey with the mysterious suitcase had only just begun. Luca, Hannah, and the magical jungle. Luca and Hannah gazed in awe at the treasures hidden inside the enchanted suitcase. Amidst the multitude of items, they discovered an old, hand-drawn map that depicted places they had never seen before. Exotic names and distant lands gleamed on the parchment, and they couldn't resist running their fingers over the lines, imagining what lay beyond these unfamiliar locations. There was also a book with golden letters on the cover that seemed to tell of exotic cultures and ancient legends. Its pages appeared imbued with a mysterious energy, and they could sense that this book held many stories for them. A small crystal nestled within the suitcase emitted the most beautiful colors and exuded a soothing warmth. They felt that this crystal held a very special significance, although they didn't yet know what it was. Luca and Hannah looked at each other, their hearts filled with a thirst for adventure. They knew that with these treasures in their hands, they could embark on journeys that would take them deep into unknown worlds and on magical quests. The mysterious voices and sounds from within the suitcase seemed to have called them to embrace the unknown. And so, Luca and Hannah decided to heed the call of adventure and embark on a journey with the enchanted suitcase, ready for whatever lay ahead. They sat down on the floor to examine the maps and items more closely, when suddenly they heard a faint rustling. But this time, the rustling didn't come from the suitcase. It came from outside. Curiously, they peered out of the attic window and saw that the garden in front of their house had transformed into a dense jungle. The suitcase had transported them to a distant place, right in the heart of a mysterious jungle. Towering trees reached high into the sky, and the air was filled with exotic scents and the sounds of wild animals. Luca and Hannah exchanged excited glances and hesitantly got up from their spots. The ground beneath their feet felt different, as if it were alive. They approached the window, through which they could see the lush curtain of the jungle. An air of adventure wafted in from outside, and Luca felt his heart beating faster. "Hannah," he whispered in excitement, "this is incredible. We're actually in a jungle." Hannah nodded, her eyes gleaming with curiosity and fascination for what lay before them. Hand in hand, Luca and Hannah took their first steps down from the attic toward the front door. They opened it and ventured boldly into the dense wilderness that stretched before them. The trees loomed high above them, and the ground was covered with exotic plants and flowers. The sounds of the jungle surrounded them, bird calls and the quiet movements of forest creatures. Luca and Hannah pressed on, drawn by the infinite beauty and the secrets hidden within the jungle. Luca and Hannah continued their journey through the dense jungle, accompanied by the mysterious sounds and the vibrant colors of nature. They had entered another world, a world full of wonders and surprises. And as they ventured deeper into the jungle, they noticed that they were not alone. A group of curious monkeys had joined them and accompanied them on their adventure. The monkeys leaped from tree to tree, pointed out hidden paths, and seemed to be guiding them in the right direction. Luca and Hannah felt protected by the presence of the jungle's inhabitants. The animals were at home here and knew the jungle inside and out. They generously shared their knowledge with the two adventurers. The forgotten temple and the mystery of the past. Together, they finally reached a mysterious place deep within the jungle. An ancient temple that had been reclaimed by nature. The temple's walls were covered in vines and plants, and birds had built their nests in the stone niches. The monkeys gathered in front of the temple. They seemed to know that this place was of special significance. Luca and Hannah approached the temple's large, heavy door. It was covered in vines and plants, as if nature itself had tried to preserve this secret. With combined effort, Luca and Hannah managed to open the massive door. It creaked and groaned as it slowly moved, and eventually, the rusty hinges gave way. The door swung open, granting them entry into the inner part of the imposing temple. The monkeys followed them up to the temple's threshold, but seemed to hesitate before the darkness inside. Luca and Hannah exchanged determined glances, and stepped through the portal into the temple's interior, ready to unveil the mysteries that awaited them. Inside the temple, filled with mysterious shadows and dim light, Luca and Hannah found themselves in a vast hall. The walls were adorned with ancient hieroglyphs and symbols that seemed to tell the stories of past civilizations. The monkeys had stopped at the entrance hall of the temple, as if they knew they shouldn't proceed further. However, Luca and Hannah felt drawn to the magic of this place and entered the hall. In the center stood a pedestal adorned with intricate decorations, on which something peculiar lay. As they approached the pedestal, they realized it was an ancient book with a large lock concealing its contents. Luca and Hannah approached the book, and Luca lifted it gently. It was a true relic of times gone by. Its cover, crafted from fine embossed leather, depicted the outlines of the temple itself, as if connecting the story it told with this place. Luca pushed aside the lock of the book and opened it. Its pages were yellowed, and the ink had long lost its luster. However, they seemed to tell an exciting tale in an ancient, mysterious script that Luca and Hannah could barely decipher. It spoke of an ancient puzzle surrounding the temple. The two were captivated by the story, and just as Luca was about to close the book and place it back on the pedestal, an old parchment fell from the book directly at their feet. On the parchment, something was written in splendid golden letters. Luca bent down to pick up the parchment, and Hannah peered curiously over his shoulder. Together, they deciphered the words written on it. If you wish to return home, solve the puzzle of the past. Find the 4 lost symbols in the depths of the temple and unveil the hidden truth within. Luca and Hannah exchanged puzzled looks as they slowly realized the meaning of this message. The words were clear. They had to solve a puzzle to return to their world. They knew they had no other choice but to embark on a quest to find the 4 lost symbols and unravel the temple's secret. The book provided no clues as to where these symbols might be hidden within the temple, but it was a clear message that this was their destiny and their only path back home. They had no choice. And so, Luca and Hannah began their search for the lost symbols, ready to embrace the challenge to find their way back. The wise bird on the ledge. Luca and Hannah stood in the imposing hall of the temple, and the task of finding the 4 lost symbols seemed almost impossible. They looked around helplessly, overwhelmed by the many hieroglyphs on the walls. There was no clear indication of where to start their search, and the symbols they sought appeared to be well hidden in the depths of the temple. Then they heard a faint rustling above them. They looked up and saw a magnificent bird perched on a high ledge. It was of rare beauty, with feathers shimmering in various shades of blue, as if the sky itself had combined its colors. Its wings were majestic and outstretched, and its eyes radiated wisdom and superior knowledge that deeply touched the 2 adventurers. The bird sat calmly and majestically on the ledge, as if it were the guardian of this mysterious place, and its song was like a melody from a long-forgotten time. The bird's gleaming eyes seemed to be directly focused on them. Then it raised its head and pointed with its beak towards a door at the end of the room. Luca and Hannah followed the bird's gaze and discovered a passage leading into the darkness of the temple. It was as if the bird wanted to show them the way to a secret, so they ventured into the darkness. As they advanced further, the temple seemed to come to life in a mysterious way. The ancient stone walls pulsed with an inexplicable energy. Moss and vines that had endured for centuries began to stir, as if celebrating a quiet awakening. The light filtering through the tree leaves and bathing the temple in a shimmering glow felt as if the temple walls themselves were breathing. As Luca and Hannah delved deeper into the temple, it seemed as if the ancient stones were whispering stories from bygone eras to them. The gentle rustling of leaves and the distant sound of a waterfall blended into a mysterious song that accompanied the two adventurers on their journey. It was as if the spirits of the past were awakening in this place, announcing their presence, guiding and protecting Luca and Hannah on their path. It was as if Luca and Hannah were becoming part of an ancient story hidden within the stone walls, waiting to be discovered by them. Through the winding corridors, they finally reached a secluded room surrounded by dark shadows. In the center of the room stood an ancient stone relief bathed in soft light. Luca and Hannah approached the relief and saw that it displayed the first symbol. A bird, majestically perched on a tree, was clearly depicted on the symbol. Its wings were outstretched, and its head was raised towards the sky. The symbol seemed alive, as if the bird might take flight at any moment. Luca and Hannah marveled at the beauty of the symbol and felt that it must have a special significance. They gently touched the stone, and as their fingers grazed the symbol, they felt it warm up as if it were alive. The shadowy figure and a wise decision. Luca and Hannah had found the first symbol. They turned to return to the entrance hall of the temple. However, as they attempted to make their way back, a shadowy figure suddenly appeared before them, blocking their path. The figure was strange and eerie, its face concealed, and it was cloaked in dark attire. Its eyes sparkled with a mysterious gleam that unsettled Luca and Hannah. "Who are you?" Luca asked confidently. "That is of no importance," replied the figure. Its voice had an eerie, smoky sound, like the whisper of ghosts from the darkness, faint yet menacing. Luca whispered to Hannah, "Hannah, I don't know, but this figure gives me an eerie feeling. I'm not sure if we should follow it." "I feel the same, Luca," Hannah whispered back. "Something is not right here. Maybe we should turn back." Luca nodded in agreement, taking a step back, and Hannah did the same. The two of them drew closer together. "You are making a grave mistake, my children. You must follow me," the shadowy figure said, its ominous words echoing through the depths of the temple. But Luca summoned all his courage and replied, "We don't know who you are, and we will not follow you." And Hannah added resolutely, "Yes, we will find our own way." The figure laughed. It was an eerie, rumbling laugh that reverberated through the dark corridors of the temple. "You will regret it, my children. The temple is no place for the weak. You will not find your way alone." Luca and Hannah knew they couldn't trust this mysterious figure. They took each other's hands, turned around, and ran as fast as they could. They ran and ran until they reached a large room, exhausted and out of breath. But this room was different from the others. Instead of gloomy shadows and mysterious symbols, bright, gentle light streamed in from above, filling the room with a warm glow. In the center of the room stood a large, ancient altar made of polished stone. On the altar lay strange objects that resembled offerings. The walls of the room were adorned with beautiful murals depicting scenes from bygone times. One painting showed people dancing under a radiant sky, while another depicted an imposing temple at the heart of a lush jungle. In front of the altar stood two life-sized statues that appeared to Luca and Hannah as divine guardians. They wore ancient ceremonial robes and seemed to watch over those who entered this room. Luca and Hannah looked around in awe, trying to grasp the significance of this room within the temple. As Luca and Hannah curiously explored the illuminated room, they suddenly discovered another stone relief on one wall. This time, it depicted a powerful creature with its head held high and a proud gaze. Luca and Hannah immediately recognized that this must be the second symbol they were seeking. It was as if their decision not to follow the enigmatic figure had led them to this symbol. It seemed as though the temple itself was rewarding their determination. Their courage and intuition had guided them on the right path, and they were now one step closer to solving the temple's mystery and finding their way home. They gazed at the symbol and noticed that it became just as vibrant and warm as the first one when they touched it. Hannah carefully placed the symbol alongside their first discovery in the case. The symbol of the waterfall. Luca and Hannah continued their journey deeper into the temple. Their confidence in their decision not to follow the mysterious figure had solidified, and they felt that the temple did not pose a threat to them. On the contrary, it felt as though the temple was asking for their help. As they walked through the winding corridors, they noticed a faint glow on one of the walls. It was as if the stone structure itself was beginning to emit light. Luca and Hannah approached this unusual light with curiosity, and as they drew nearer, they saw that the radiance emanated from a rock ledge depicting a waterfall cascading through a dense forest. The symbol appeared to flow and ripple, exuding a soothing energy. Luca and Hannah realized that this symbol was not among the ones they were seeking, but rather guiding them further into the temple. So, they decided to follow the light and the gentle melody of the water until they reached a room with a small pond surrounded by vegetation, fed by a waterfall. In this room, time seemed to stand still. In the center of the room lay the pond, surrounded by lush greenery and exotic flowers that reached up to the walls. The pond was illuminated by a soft, golden light that filtered down from the vines and plants above. At the pond's edge stood two massive statues, resembling ancient guardians watching over the mysterious waters. The pond's water was clear and calm, reflecting the green leaves of the surrounding plants. It seemed as though the room established a connection with nature itself, and Luca and Hannah felt that they had arrived at a very special place within the heart of the temple. Lost in the temple. At the edge of the pond, Luca and Hannah discovered the third symbol in the dim light. It was engraved into a stone just beneath the water's surface and depicted a majestic creature with two heads. The creature seemed deeply engrossed in meditation, radiating an aura of wisdom and serenity. Luca and Hannah were overwhelmed by the beauty and magic of this symbol. They carefully added it to the other two symbols in their case, realizing that they were on the verge of solving the temple's puzzle. Luca and Hannah had now ventured deep into the temple, and the further they went, the more convoluted the labyrinth of corridors, passageways, and rooms became. But here, their path seemed to end. The pond and the lush vegetation surrounding it nearly filled the space, blocking their way. Luca and Hannah stood by the clear water, looking around in despair. There was nothing to help them cross the pond, and they couldn't turn back because they were certain the shadowy figure was waiting for them somewhere. Their path had led them into a dead end, seemingly putting an end to their search for the fourth symbol. They racked their brains for a solution in this hopeless situation, but all efforts seemed futile. "Luca, what do we do now?" Hannah asked in desperation. "I don't know, Hannah," Luca replied. And in that moment of deep despair, something unexpected happened. The pond's water began to ripple slowly, and as it calmed down again, both of them clearly saw Grandpa Theo's reflection in it. His smile was warm and comforting, and he seemed to be waving at them, as if to reassure them. Luca and Hannah stared spellbound at the reflection on the smooth water surface. Grandpa Theo's eyes met theirs, and it seemed he had a message to convey. And then, the reflection faded and disappeared into the depths of the pond. Luca and Hannah stood at the pond's edge, their eyes fixed on the clear water where Grandpa Theo's reflection had just been. Suddenly, Luca remembered his grandfather's words about an old adventure in a distant land. Grandpa Theo had talked about a magical pond with the ability to merge the past and the future. To harness this gift, one had to summon the courage to close their eyes and leap into the clear water. Luca suddenly realized that this story held a message for him and Hannah. His grandfather's words echoed in his mind, and he felt they had found the right path. Without hesitation, he turned to Hannah and exclaimed excitedly, "Hannah, I remember a story Grandpa Theo told me. It was about a magical pond. Close your eyes. We need to gather all our courage and jump into the water. I believe this is our chance to return home." Hannah looked at Luca and immediately understood. Without saying another word, they held hands and jumped into the clear pond with closed eyes. The water enveloped them, and an invisible force seemed to carry them. It was as if they were gliding through a mysterious tunnel of liquid light. And then, miraculously, they found themselves back in the temple's entrance hall. The water that had surrounded them moments ago had vanished, and they stood on dry ground. The search for the last lost symbol. With amazement and relief, Luca and Hannah looked around. They had miraculously returned to where they had started their search. However, after their astonishing journey through the pond, there was no sign of the fourth symbol anywhere in sight. How should they proceed now? Their puzzlement cast a shadow over them. They scoured the temple, hoping to discover a clue to the fourth and final symbol. They examined every corner, searched in the shadows of the ancient walls, and contemplated where it might be hidden. But the symbol seemed to elude their gaze. Then something strange caught their attention. The glow of the crystal in the case they had been carrying with them the whole time seemed brighter and more intense than before. It was as if the case was trying to communicate something to them in a mysterious way. They exchanged puzzled glances and agreed that the case held more secrets than they had initially suspected. The crystal in the case now shone in all its splendor, casting a soft glow through the thin leather of the case onto the stone wall. a thought crossed their minds. "The case," they exclaimed. "The case." The case that had led them into the temple also bore a symbol on its lid. Could it be that the fourth symbol had been in front of their eyes all along? Luca and Hannah rushed to the case and stared at the engraving on its lid. This had to be the missing puzzle piece. The fourth symbol they had been seeking to solve the puzzle and return home was right there on the case's lid. Determinedly, Luca stepped closer, opened the case, and placed his hand on the symbol of the bird, the first symbol. Then he placed his other hand on the second symbol. Hannah followed suit, touching the third symbol, representing the double-headed creature with one hand, and the fourth on the case's lid with the other. They then looked expectantly into each other's eyes. Their hands rested on the symbols, and suddenly they felt the symbols beginning to glow, and a gentle radiance filled the entire room. A magical energy flowed through their fingers into their bodies, connecting the four symbols together. Then they closed their eyes. Return to Grandpa Theo. Luca and Hannah opened their eyes. The sounds of the jungle around them had fallen silent. The exotic scents and vibrant colors of the forest had vanished. They were back in their secret hideaway in the garden. The plans for their adventure lay before them, unchanged, as if nothing had happened. Yet they felt a warm, gentle breeze of reassurance enveloping them. A deep familiarity bound them together. The adventures they had shared had strengthened their bond and fused them closer together. Their gazes met, and they smiled at each other, as if they shared a secret connection that only the two of them could understand. It was as if they had not only solved the mystery of the temple, but also uncovered the secrets of their own friendship. The mystery of the temple had been solved, and they had found their way back. The suitcase that had guided them through this exciting adventure seemed to have lost its magic after this last special experience. As if Luca and Hannah had freed it from a burden, they gazed at the suitcase, which now appeared to be nothing more than a simple, old traveling companion. Yet every one of its marks and signs reminded them of all the experiences and lessons they had gathered through this journey. In the days following their return from the temple between worlds, Luca and Hannah shared their incredible story with Grandpa Theo. The old man listened attentively as they told him about the lost symbols, the mysterious bird, and their adventure in the jungle temple. Grandpa Theo smiled as he heard how brave his grandson and his friend Hannah had been, and how they had stuck together, even in times of despair. "You two are truly adventurers," he said proudly, "and you have shown that true friendship can move mountains." The memory of the adventure remained alive for Luca and Hannah for a long time, and they knew that in their hiding place, somewhere between Moon Mountain and Star Grove, they would experience many more adventures. With Grandpa Theo by their side and their unshakable friendship, they were ready to face whatever life had in store for them. And so ends the story of Luca and Hannah, the courageous adventurers who discovered the magic of the suitcase and understood the importance of friendship and trust. It is meant to remind us that life is full of mysteries and unexpected turns, and to encourage us to remain curious, explore the world, and face challenges together with others. For often, it is the most unusual paths that lead us to the most amazing discoveries. This book may come to a close, but the adventures of Luca and Hannah are far from over. For in their hearts, they carry the memory of the magical temple that taught them that true treasures are often hidden in the most unexpected places.